There we go.
Mega Sci-Fi fraternity. That's ours. Yes. Y'all know what time it is. Wow, this is great. You know, this morning I was listening, I came for the very first so I could feel the energy and listen. And I thought, boy, I wish so many things that were talked about this morning existed when I was dealing with what I was dealing with. I'm a survivor of childhood sexual abuse. And I had planned on dying with my secret. I wasn't gonna tell a soul. I'm 67 years old, okay? So I went to college in 1974, and I grew up on the south side of Chicago. And I had been sexually abused by a male babysitter who was the older son of our regular babysitter, and she couldn't watch us. He was about 18, and he had groomed me, and all those things took place. And I often thought, and my mother came up to me because she thought something had happened, and she said, "Don't let anyone touch you." Well, he had already touched me, so now I think it's my fault. So that's why it's so important what we say and how we approach people is so important. Now, I don't know if I still would have said anything, but I knew I shut down right then. And I often think about that like, man, how would I deal with, in my neighborhood, the south side of Chicago in the 60s? It would have been worse for me if people had found out I had been sexually abused than it would have been the actual sexual abuse. The teasing, the bullying, the whole 9 yards. So often we keep things to ourselves because we are afraid of how it be reacted, how things will go on. And I am so thankful that today we talk about these things. I have a tattoo on my forearm that says turn trauma into triumph. I got it 2 years ago at 65 years old and got my ear pierced. I turned 65, went crazy. But, I was one of those folks who was very quiet and I was triggered into it. So anyway, 1988, I start my business. And I'm an architect by degree. I went to Morehouse College. And after I finished Morehouse, I went to Howard University and got my degree in architecture and started my career as an architect. And then in 1983, my wife and I, we were been married less than a year. I said, baby, I'm gonna take you to Atlanta. We were living in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And the reason we moved, her parents lived 2 miles to the left, mine lived 2 miles to the right, and she's from a divorced family, so we had another set of parents 2 miles to the center. And our first Thanksgiving and Christmas, I said, we getting out of here. Because I had to eat 3 meals, and whose house were we at too long and all that. So I said, dear, I got this idea. I'm gonna take you to Atlanta. So I quit this great job, she quits her job, and the company I go to work for goes bankrupt 2 months after I get there. So my great idea ain't looking so good. So then I started working for these small companies, and finally in 88, I said, baby, let's go for it. We ain't got nothing to lose, because we were broke. So we go in business, and I said, let's see what happens. Now, everything's moving along, because I thought I was gonna be the next Frank Lloyd Wright when I was at Bechtel. But I took a field assignment at Bechtel, and I went to a construction site, and that's when I made my pivot. I said, this fits me more, the energy, the action. So I always tell people, be very careful about when people say chase your passion, chase what you're good at doing. My passion is architecture, but I just would have been average. But construction fit me. So that's how I got in construction. So anyway, time goes on. That's my family there. This is our first construction site in business. And my wife's here, but she's at the hotel. She said, I've been listening to you for 41 years. That's enough. We're going to celebrate our 41st wedding anniversary in a couple of weeks. So anyway, we're doing our thing, and life's going on, and struggling, trying to make ends meet. And, I feel the stress of all of it. But I'm not thinking about what happened to me as a child could be impacting me yet. I'm having moments where I feel a little anxious and different stuff, but there's no way what happened to me as a child could be affecting me as an adult. That's what I'm thinking, because I haven't told anybody. It's my secret. So anyway, in 1991, I was the first person of color to win the Small Business Award from the Atlanta Business Chamber of Commerce. Little did I know in 8 months, my whole life would change. My wife finds out that someone close to her had been sexually abused by someone we knew. And it triggered me in a way I didn't realize. I blurted it out. It happened to me. And I thought I was okay. I really did. 3 or 4 months go by, I'm driving to the gym, and all of a sudden I can't breathe. And I'm like, man, this isn't good. So I call my wife. She doesn't answer her cell phone. This is 1991, 92. So this is when cell phones were 35 cents a minute. And my wife didn't answer, so then I called 911. They come, they hook all these things up to me. They go, Mr. Moody, you're okay. So I go to my doctor and I tell him what happened. He said, man, you're just under stress, young family, bunch of kids, just take these pills, you'll be all right. I didn't say what happened to me as a child yet, because there's no way that could be impacting me, right? So a couple months go by and I go out of town and I have another real bad one, except this one's really bad. And all of a sudden now I'm getting uncontrollable shakes. I can't stop crying. I'm actually having a nervous breakdown. But I couldn't tell anyone because I was too ashamed. I'm too embarrassed. How do I do this? So my wife's at home 5 hours away. I was in St. Simons, Georgia. The next morning I got up and drove home. And I'm just falling apart. But my business was only 4 years old. So I'm like, if I tell anybody this is going on, people probably won't do business with me. But we still haven't connected the sexual abuse was a trauma that's now impacting me. So I went and had every kind of test you can have. I had brain scans, all because I'm thinking I got a brain tumor or something. And they said, sir, we can't find nothing wrong with you. Then finally, I was talking to a friend who's a psychiatrist, and we put 2 and 2 together. It was the childhood sexual abuse and the trauma. But even then, I wasn't ready to deal with it. I just did therapy to deal with panic attacks. I still wasn't prepared to deal with trauma. So what I did was still act like it really wasn't that bad. So I would just power through. And that's really, really tough. So the next 28 years, I just powered through the trauma from 92 to 2020. Now there's a link on there that, how many of y'all ever seen the movie Silverado? The movie with Danny Glover. Can you click that by any chance? If not, don't worry about it. I'll tell you the story. So anyway, there's a scene where Danny Glover, this is an old cowboy movie, he goes into a cave to get the star who had been kicked by a horse and he could barely move. But when Danny Glover tells him that they took the little boy, his nephew, he got this incredible energy to go get the boy back. That's what powering through is like, where you have to get all incredible energy to just go every day, but your body gets worn down. And that's why therapy and stuff is so important. So in 2020, I started feeling myself having another breakdown. But this time I knew what was going on. So my wife went to Psychology Today, and we found a therapist in trauma. And I finally did cognitive behavioral therapy. That changed my life. It was tough because I finally had to dig deep into how this trauma had impacted me. Now I tell y'all these stories, especially you young folks. Don't be afraid to be honest with yourself. Don't be afraid to say you need help, because anxiety and panic attacks, it impacts your performance. For the first time in my life, I've been in business 35 years. The last 2 years, or the first 2 years, I've actually been running my business where I'm not trying to hide or wrestle with anxiety and panic attacks. And I'm free, finally. Now, I'll never forget what happened. I'll never forget the trauma, but I don't have to hide it. That's the hard part about trying to hide anxiety, trying to hide panic attacks, trying to hide your embarrassment, especially something that happened to you as a child. It's not your fault. It was my therapist who finally helped me free myself, because I always held myself guilty. It was my fault. One, I wasn't strong enough. And two, I never said anything. So did I let that person hurt other children? I carried that my whole adult life. And my therapist said, why are you carrying that person's actions? I had never thought about it like that. I always beat myself up saying, I'm letting this person possibly hurt other people. So we have to be careful of the baggage we carry. Do you hear me? We carry so much that it has nothing to do with us. It's not our fault, but we don't talk about it. And I'm so happy to see what they're doing here with the John E. Martin Symposium. This is powerful. This is important, because so many of you are going to do something incredible with your life. One of the reasons I speak up, I didn't start speaking publicly to 2012. I went from 92 to 2012 telling no one still. It was the Jerry Sandusky thing at Penn State that finally made me speak up. I said, man, this got to stop, because we don't think it happens to people we know or in our family. And I finally said, you know what? I'm one of those kids. And it's impacted my life tremendously. Now, I've had a great life, wife, kids, and all those kind of things. But in reality, I missed a lot. And what I mean by that, I was physically present, but often I wasn't emotionally present or mentally present, because I was wrestling with hope I don't have a panic attack, or just anxiety, or all the different thoughts, or what will people think if they know I was sexually abused as a child? And I missed so much. So I'm at that stage of life where I really and truly embrace every day, and I'm always present. Be present. There's nothing better than being present. So in 2023, last year, 2022, a buddy of mine said, hey, let's go hike Mount Kilimanjaro. I said, yeah. I didn't know what I was getting into. But I trained for 11 months, and one of the reasons I did it, I wanted to face every trigger that impacts me with anxiety. High altitude, you don't have much oxygen. It's like having a panic attack. I had to fly 18 hours. I was leaving my wife at home. I was going to be totally disconnected. The first night in the tent, I had a panic attack because I felt claustrophobic. But I wasn't going to quit. I was going to see it through. Because we do what? We turn trauma into triumph. And my buddy, whose idea it was an 8-day trip. Day 3, he quit. He got sick. The high altitude's beating him. So now I'm by myself for 5 days. But I had a guide, of course, but they didn't speak much English. But here's the cool part. His name was Moses. That was deep, wasn't it? I'm on that mountain. And I learned something, a lot of things, but a couple of things I learned on that mountain. The first 4 mornings, I would get up, I go, Moses, where are we going today? And he would point. And I go, how far? He go, Dave, we're going to go up 2,000 feet, 3,000, 1,100, whatever, and we're going to go 5 miles, 8 miles, whatever. And I noticed I was the whole hike, and if any of y'all, how many of y'all ever been hiking in general? How many of y'all know what a switchback is? Well, switchback, you go like this. Well, when you do a switchback, if you keep looking up, you don't think you're getting nowhere. So I realized I was making the trip harder for myself, because I was always looking at the end. And then on day 5, I said, Moody, don't look no more than 30 feet in front of you, because you're going to get there when you get there anyway. And in reality, the end is death, so don't be in a rush to get to the end. So I realized on that hike, just enjoy the journey. You're going to get there when you get there. It was no rush no more. And it made the trip so much more exciting. So anyway, this is one day, look, that's the top behind me. I'm sitting there and I'm looking at my phone and I'm reading some inspirational stuff to keep me going, because your mind be playing tricks on you. It is true. Because I've trained big time. The mind will quit before the body. The mind messes with you. And that's why dealing with anxiety and panic attacks and trauma is so important, because it's here. And I want each of you to understand you can have the most incredible life regardless of what you've been through. As the Reverend said this morning, we all got a story. We all got a story. It's a matter of how do we let it get to us. So anyway, I'm facing all this stuff. And if I ever see porridge again, I'll never eat it. I ate porridge every morning. That's what they cooked before they gave us other food. So anyway, I'm 6 hours from the top. And they check your blood oxygen every day, couple days. Now my blood oxygen had dropped to like 68. It's getting a little dangerous. And they tell you, and there are helicopters at base flying people in and out. And my guy goes, man, that's $8,000 if they have to bring a doctor on a helicopter, but it's $3,000 to catch a ride. I said, they take American Express, because I was about to catch me a ride down. But I said, no, I wanted to walk out on my own 2 feet. And they said, always talk, communicate. And I said, hey man, the top of my head is starting to feel like it's crawling. He said, we better give you some oxygen. He said, you're not going to be able to go to the top now. And I actually started crying, because I went, man, I didn't train and got all this, and now I'm not going to make it. And then my wife was flying over at that time, because we were going to do a 10-day safari after I came down. And I said, I don't want her to come in to identify a body. I want her to come enjoy a safari. And I made a promise to her, if they tell me to stop, I would stop. They said, Mr. Moody, we got to get you down to 13,000 feet, but it might take about 3 or 4 hours. We just hiked 8 hours and 10 miles because the way you're moving, it could be tough. Once they gave me that oxygen, we were down there in 1 hour and 10 minutes. I tell you that every one of us in this room can be oxygen to somebody by a kind word, a smile, a listening ear. Oxygen is so important. What they're doing here today, that's oxygen for somebody here today. So never underestimate the power you have in a smile, in a kind word, or just being there for somebody. Because we all have our moments. We're all much stronger than we realize. We will all be knocked to our knees, but I promise you, you will get up. You are stronger than you realize. So I go through all this, and that was the best part of my journey. My wife and I on a safari. I completed all 8 days. And I thought about, when I was on that mountain, I thought about this journey of dealing with trauma. I thought about the journey of panic attacks, a complete nervous breakdown. I'd heard of them, but to actually have one and to keep your business going and act like to the public nothing's wrong, nobody should live like that. Nobody should have to suffer in silence. That's why I speak up. I don't want anybody to suffer in silence. You're okay. It's not your fault. Whatever you might be dealing with, get the help you need. Therapy is great. I have the most incredible life. I have the most incredible life. And I have that incredible life because of love, faith, and I wasn't afraid to get help when I finally decided to do cognitive behavioral therapy. I thought I could do it all on my own by powering through. You cannot do it. Get the help you need. And I'm gonna close with this. Sometimes in life, you're gonna go against challenges, you're gonna get bumped and you're gonna get bruised. But I promise you, life is worth living if you don't give up. Nobody said it was gonna be easy, but I promise you, it is an incredible. I'm 67 years old and I'm just getting cranked up. You understand? I'm ready to do another adventure. I don't know what it is, but I'm gonna do something else because I've lived a good life, but I missed a lot because I was trying to hide anxiety. I was trying to hide panic attacks. I was trying to hide that I'm a survivor of childhood sexual abuse. I'm not ashamed. I'm not embarrassed. I am who I am. So live the most incredible life you can have. And thank y'all so much for having me.